Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and welcome to Season 27 of Pokemon Go Battle League. There have been a ton of changes to moves and a lot of attack availability updates, and I'm going to try and cover as many of them as I possibly can on my channel. In today's video, I'm talking about a massive buff this season to double Legacy Kanto Ninetales. Energy Ball got a rework. It's slightly less damage this season, but it's quite a bit cheaper, and that means Ninetales can spam out Energy Ball every 10 turns. This instantly makes Ninetales the most flexible fire type in the entire game, and a fire type that actually destroys a lot of the common water types. So without further ado, let's get right into it, and we get a dominant lead win in game number 1, Ninetales into Seismitoad. This is a win for Ninetales in all evens because I just simply outpaced the Seismitoad. My opponent makes a really nice catch, catching Energy Ball onto Fearow, but look at the speed of Ninetales. I've already rebanked that Energy Ball for later, and now I can send in Kingdra. The theme of this team is it's a triple buff team. Ninetales got the big Energy Ball buff, Kingdra gets access to Surf for the very first time, and Mantine can now learn Twister, giving it its pacing back that it lost when Aerial Ace got nerfed. My opponent's going to try and make a play for switch advantage, and I decide that I am actually going to match their shield. I decide to undertap here. I don't want the Peck to land, because if it doesn't, then I think I can actually make a move into the Seismitoad if they bring it in and try and farm down. They are going to bring in the Seismitoad. Seismitoad up energy is obviously going to do very well into the Ninetales. I have the Energy Ball banked, but I think I'm going to utilize the bulk of Mantine here. Seismitoad this season gets access to Icy Wind, and it's a very fast Icy Wind. Seismitoad is a Pokemon I do really want to try out. Every 10 turns, being able to spam out Icy Wind is crazy. In the back, my opponent has a Jump Bluff, and this game is over. My opponent was ABA weak to the Ninetales. It seems crazy that a Mud Boy is weak to Ninetales, but welcome to the Season 27 meta. People ask for grass buffs, and what better grass type than Kanto Ninetales? Kanto Ninetales has the coverage of a grass type without actually having the weaknesses of being a grass type. I'm able to fire off 3 Weather Balls back to back to back. Jump Bluff baits with the Energy Ball, but I was never going to shield. Once I landed that second Weather Ball, I could just win the game with the Mantine. In comes Mantine, Seismitoad, gonna spam out so many Icy Winds. Again, the speed on Seismitoad is crazy, but it's still not faster than Kanto Ninetales. I did intentionally run the non-Shadow Kanto Ninetales because the survivability is really nice, especially in matchups like against Quagsire, where you can actually tank an Aqua Tail pretty comfortably. Hopping into game number 2, we pick up a pretty negative lead, Kanto Ninetales into Zweilous. Part of the reason why I have the Kingdra Mantine backline is his 2 anti-dragons, because realistically, Ninetales is going to do pretty well into most any Pokemon that isn't a dragon. So I send in Kingdra, land the Swift, and my opponent's going to send out Tinkaton. Tinkaton should be able to get a full farm down here, but thanks to having Surf, I'm going to be able to output some really nice damage with Kingdra. I can't quite get the 2-hit KO, but the threat of that damage actually forces my opponent into firing off a Bulldoze. Bulldoze will knock out the Kingdra, I can bring in the Ninetales, and just look to try and farm up. I would really love to try and save this energy and catch onto Mantine if I can, so I'm going to look to farm up here because they did get the Bulldoze debuff and get the catch onto the Mantine. I'm really hoping I don't get debuffed here. Bulldoze going to be double resisted, they do not get the debuff, and I'm just going to look to overfarm. I was a little bit worried my opponent would try and catch the Water Pulse, so I'm just going to stay in and shield Gigaton Hammer. While it is resisted, it's an incredibly powerful move, so I'm going to farm up just shy of 100, and Water Pulse will be the end of Tinkaton. I'm down a shield, but I do have energy everywhere. My opponent still has quite a bit of energy on Zweilous, and they're going to bring in the Zweilous here. I fire off Twister. This will easily pick up the knockout. They put up the shield, and I should be able to survive whatever they throw here. Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse, Mantine is very, very bulky. They go for the Dark Pulse. I'm able to hang on. I will make it to the Twister, and Twister will be securing the knockout or that final Protect shield. Down goes Zweilous. In the back is Jellicent, and you're about to see Energy Ball spam like you've never seen before. Energy Ball number 1 is going to connect. Ninetales already at Energy Ball number 2. Jellicent has pretty decent pacing. Jellicent needs to get to 7 hexes for the double surf to win the game. And guess what? They just can't get there. Ninetales wins charge attack priority. This speed is just ludicrous. Energy Ball KOs the Jellicent, and that's a good game. We move to game number 3, Kanto Ninetales into Shadow Abomasnow. This is an incredibly good lead. My opponent's going to be safe switching into Sableye. I don't have a strong answer to Sableye on this team, so I'm just going to stay in to chip with the Weather Ball before sending in the bulky Mantine. Mantine, it's here to just basically take hits and beat Dragon types. There's no Dragon types here, so Mantine's going to have to absorb energy. This Sableye is actually on return, which definitely caught me off guard. Because Sableye, the typical moveset to run is Foul Play and Drain Punch. Either way, return still doesn't pressure a knockout because Mantine is just so stupidly bulky. I'm going to fire off another Twister. It looks like my opponent's going to have to double shield if they want switch advantage. I still feel pretty comfortable here. I'm just going to bring in the Kingdra, absorb energy, and then trust in the fact that Ninetales with 2 shields should do pretty well into whatever they have. Because it's very difficult to construct an Abomasnow team without pairing Abomasnow with a water type. And if Abomasnow is paired with a water type, then it's just losing to the Kanto Ninetales. Abomasnow gets 1 shot as Weather Ball is double super effective. In the back is a Azumarill, and again, they're just about to get absolutely spammed to death by Energy Ball. Energy Ball did get a reduction in damage, so Energy Ball won't be able to pick up the 2-hit KO onto Azumarill. But as Azumarill tries to farm down here, they just can't. Kanto Ninetales is just absolutely relentless. I make 2 Energy Balls into a Weather Ball. Azumarill in absolute shambles. We switch into Kingdra. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, we've got a perfect mirror lead. Kanto Ninetales into Kanto Ninetales. Ideally, the best way to play the mirror is not to play the mirror. So I'm going to farm up 8 and go for a catch onto Kingdra. This should be a double resisted Weather Ball Fire, and that way I can save a bunch of energy for whatever my opponent has in the back. My opponent rebanks, they send in Jellicent, and this is such a smart switch for my opponent. Since Kingdra now runs Swift and Surf, Kingdra is actually walled by Jellicent. So my opponent knows that this is a pretty safe play for them because I can't really do any damage here. I decide that I do value the Kingdra energy, so I will put up the shield. Unfortunately, I can't take the knockout with Surf, so arguably what I should have done here was bank this energy and then catch onto the Mantine. Throwing the move is a pretty big error on my part because it would not have KO'd. I was hoping it would have KO'd, but it was never going to KO. That was just a pretty poor play on my part. In comes Shadow Jumpluff in the back. Unfortunately, I'm not running Ice Beam, so I can't threaten double super effective damage, but Twister will still add up. My opponent throws immediately here, and if they throw Acrobatics, then they're just going to be completely energy dry. That's really nice for me. I can bring in the Ninetales, farm to 100, and now I'm 1 off triple Weather Ball. First Weather Ball into the Jumpluff is going to connect, picking up the knockout. They bring back in their Ninetales, and I'm going to fire off my Weather Ball. I would love to try and go for a catch onto the Kingdra. I don't get the catch, but what I do get is the Swift. This is going to pressure away a shield from my opponent. So now, I'm pretty okay just letting the Kingdra go. They're going to be forced to go for the Energy Ball, and with the Dragon Breath chip damage that I've gotten already onto this Ninetales, they should be approaching a range where I can deliver a knockout. I'm not quite sure what does more here when both are resisted, Weather Ball or Energy Ball. Energy Ball has the higher base damage, but obviously does not get same type attack bonus. My opponent makes a nice catch, catching Weather Ball on a Jellicent. I undercharge, get the Ember down, but either way, I just have the health advantage, and this game is over. The Kanto Ninetales mirror, a bit of an awkward one now that neither of us are running Overheat or Scorching Sands, but luckily for me, a game that we are going to be able to take the win on. Weather Ball lands. I go for the Energy Ball just to guarantee the knockout. Again, I don't know if it does more. I assume it does, but I'm not 100% sure. Energy Ball knocks out the Ninetales, and we get the win. We move to the next match, Kanto Ninetales leading into a Shadow Shelgon. Not a good lead matchup. I'm going to be safe switching into Kingdra, and my opponent is not pivoting out. I fire off the Swift. They make a catch onto Melmetal. Melmetal's another Pokemon that did get buffed this season. Melmetal now has access to Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch is an incredibly efficient attack, and it's just way better for Melmetal than having to be stuck with Superpower. Dynamic lands, Kingdra survives, and I will be able to fire off my Surf. I'm hoping the Surf will put them into Ember down range, but unfortunately, it looks like they will barely survive the 4th Ember on just a couple HP remaining there to make Dynamic. That Dynamic did so much damage, I pivot into Mantine, and I end up getting the catch and sneak as Shelgon fires off the Twister. Shadow Twister will do quite a lot of damage. My opponent's going to be staying in here. They try for a catch. In the back, they have Seismitoad. This game actually somehow looks winnable. My Mantine is already pretty low, but I feel like if I can bank enough energy on the Mantine, then I might still be in an okay position. Seismitoad is very, very fast. It'll be able to spam out these Icy Winds. I'm just going to try and bank as much energy as I can, pivot into the Ninetales, but I accidentally missed the button. I tried to just switch and snipe, but I end up missing the button. They go for the Earth Power. I click the Weather Ball, and as soon as I did, I realized it was a misplay because they're always just going to be no shielding. They pivot into the Shelgon. Shelgon going to be hit with the Weather Ball. This is resisted, but they've already taken quite a lot of damage throughout the course of this game. Ninetales should not get farmed down here. They're going to have to fire off energy. And I have back-to-back Twisters loaded on Mantine. I saved all this energy from earlier in the match for this exact purpose. If they shield, I can just knock them out with the next. They no shield. They send in the Seismitoad. Seismitoad makes the Icy Wind, but it would need to have double here to win the game, and they just simply are not there. Look at Mantine. My boy is back. Back-to-back Twisters. First one gets the shield. Second one will be taking the knockout. Even despite the terrible lead leading into the Shadow Shelgon, the team fights back and gets the win. We move to the next game, Kanto Ninetales into Clodsire. Now this, not the greatest lead for Ninetales, so I'm just going to save switch into Kingdra. I have 2 Mons in the back that have water coverage, so I may as well send them in. I'm going to fire off Surf as soon as I'm able to get there. Surf lands, and that's really nice damage onto the Clodsire. Clodsire does have enough for the Earthquake, so I will put up a shield. They do full set the Earthquake. Now they're going to pivot out and send in Licky Licky. Not an amazing Pokemon for my team to see, but we do still have some play into it. Kingdra is pretty neutral, and I do have access to Mantine as a very bulky Pokemon to absorb damage. This team is ABA weak to rollout, with both the Mantine and the Kanto Ninetales taking super effective damage. I do think Licky Licky is pretty playable for this team, but it does require a little bit of finesse. I'm going to try and overfarm to the max. My opponent pivots out, sending in the Clodsire. I farm up to Water Pulse plus Twister, and I'm going to fire off the Water Pulse. Water Pulse is going to be knocking out the Clodsire. I'm very low, but I do have a Twister banked. Twister would be enough to secure the knockout onto Licky Licky, and that's exactly what they bring back in. Are they just going to be sacking Licky Licky? Yes, they're saving 2 shields for their final Pokemon, which is Pangoro. I'm going to bring in Kingdra. This does look like a bit of a tricky scenario to be in. However, Kanto Ninetales is very bulky, so I should be able to survive a close combat on the Kanto Ninetales, and that's going to be my plan. They can never close combat here, so I'm just going to let it go, send in the Ninetales, but they get the boost! And unfortunately, I have lost the game. I can always survive a close combat from a non-boosted Pangoro, but the boost wins them the game as the close combat KOs, and we just get farmed down. We move to the next game, leading Kanto Ninetales into a Corviknight. Now this is an incredibly nice lead. Corviknight's going to be save switching into Altaria, and I have a very strong answer, so I just send in Mantine. Here, my opponent ends up throwing out alignment as they end up CMP tying the Mantine, but Mantine does look like a pretty convincing answer to Altaria. I don't really need switch advantage here, but it looks like Twister will be able to pick up the 2-hit KO, and it's not like their Dragon Breaths are doing a lot to the Mantine. Even with me being down a little bit of energy, I'm still able to outpace due to the straight 10 pacing, and if my opponent puts up the shield, I feel pretty comfortable shielding back. They could try and go for a catch back onto the Corviknight, but switch locking the Corviknight feels like it would be a pretty rough decision for them, because then they're just going to get destroyed by the Ninetales. They do catch the Twister back onto the Corviknight. I'm going to throw 4 wing attacks and then send in the Ninetales. Even though I've given my opponent a huge energy head start, it doesn't really end up mattering because Ninetales is very bulky. I can tank a payback very comfortably, fire off Weather Ball, and this is going to do a lot of damage onto Corviknight. Corviknight will be able to hang on. I decide that I will fire off the second Weather Ball just to ensure they can't make any 1 HP air cutters. That's going to be knocking them out. They bring back an Altaria. I'm able to make another Weather Ball. And even in matchups where I don't need Energy Ball, the Weather Ball spam is still incredibly fast. In the back is Starmie. Starmie did get access to Surf this season. So actually, no, Starmie got access to Aqua Jet this season. I stand corrected. I believe it already had access to Surf, but I should just be able to farm down with the Kingdra and win the game. Here I go for a pretty brain dead play. I just decide, you know what? I'm not going to shield. And it turns out Thunder does a huge amount of damage and I almost get farmed down. I had a guaranteed win condition of just always shielding there and then farm down and win, but I end up no shielding just for the heck of it, and I almost pay the price, but luckily Kingdra hangs on and we win the game. We move to the final match. We've got the Battle of Fire types, Kanto Ninetales into Skeleturge. I save switch into Kingdra because I have 2 better answers to Skeleturge in the back, and that's going to be met with a Furret. This feels like a pretty good spot to be in for me. Once I land a Surf, I should be able to control switch advantage in this game. And switch advantage would be really nice, as Mantine should do a really nice job of shutting down that Skeleturge. So I put up the shield, my opponent boosts up their Sucker Punches, because obviously I can't shield fast moves, but my Dragon Breaths already have them so incredibly low after landing the Surf, that I'm just going to be double shielding and fully farming down. This will give me the ability to make a Surf into the Skeleturge when they bring it back in, and Skeleturge is going to have a really rough time trying to incinerate down. But they actually don't bring it back in. Instead, they're going to bring in a counter Poliwrath. I'm going to chip the Poliwrath and pivot into the Mantine because Mantine just looks really, really strong into their team. So I can make it to the Twister before they're able to make the Icy Wind because this is not a Mud Shot Poliwrath, it's a counter Poliwrath. Inadequins did have a pretty good tournament run with a counter Poliwrath a few weeks ago. Honestly, I don't really see the vision on counter Poliwrath, but Inadequins can kind of make most anything work at a tournament, so I don't know if him winning with it means it's good. I think it might just mean that Inadequins is good. Skeleturge Shadow Balls, Mantine survives, what an absolute tank. And now I can return fire with the Water Pulse. Water Pulse will connect for big damage. In comes Kingdra. Kingdra has the Surf. Skeleturge has been erased. And now I can close out the game with the star of the show, the Kanto Ninetales. Poliwrath desperately racing to a move, but counter will simply betray it. They cannot get the energy needed. Energy Ball erases the Poliwrath, and that is a good game. In a team of 3 buffed Pokemon, I feel like I should probably independently give a review of each Mon. And I'm going to start with the Mon that I think was probably my favorite, the Kanto Ninetales. The speed on Kanto Ninetales is just absolutely absurd. The fact that Kanto Ninetales could realistically lead into a Pokemon like Gastrodon and stay in and have win conditions even in the 2 shield is just absolutely ludicrous. The speed on this Pokemon is incredible. It does so well into the waters, and I think it's going to force a pretty heavy dragon presence in the meta, because unless you're running something like a dragon type, then realistically Ninetales is always hitting you for neutral. The waters don't end up being a very effective answer to the Kanto Ninetales unless it's like a very bulky water like a Lapras, or a water with fast attack pressure like Dondozo. So to me, I think Ninetales is a big winner day number 1. I did really like using the non-Shadow Ninetales. The extra bulk came in clutch in a lot of matchups because the Energy Ball already hits pretty hard anyway, and Ninetales is like mid-1900s in terms of stat product, so Ninetales is pretty bulky. So being able to actually utilize that bulk, it felt like it put me at a pretty big advantage in a lot of games. I really liked Mantine. Mantine doesn't ever really do a lot of damage, but I don't think it really has to. Mantine is a flyer that's an anti-dragon. Twister allows it to at least have some damage neutrally because Aerial Ace is so incredibly terrible, and I kind of just use it as a damage sponge. There was a lot of scenarios where there was a problem Pokemon or something had too much energy, and I just kind of threw Mantine at it, to be honest. I didn't really have a grand plan for this team. It was kind of just Mantine, be bulky, tank hits, and then Kanto Ninetales could just kind of destroy teams. When it came to Kingdra, Kingdra was kind of interesting. I felt like Kingdra was pretty nice to play overall. Kingdra getting answered with the Tinkaton and not quite being able to 2-shot with Surf was a pain point for the Kingdra, I would say. Like, the Tinkaton, I believe they ended up throwing a Bulldoze at me, but they very easily could have just Fairy Winded me all the way down because the Dragon Breath are triple resisted, and my 2 Surfs would have barely missed the knockout. I do have a Shadow Kingdra that I could try. I'm a little bit worried on the bulk on it, just because Shadow Kingdra, it is very, very frail in the Open Great League. Another Pokemon that I did end up trying on a different team was Jumpluff. Now, Jumpluff is another recipient of the big Energy Ball buff. So it has straight 5 to Energy Ball, and then it's just going to be running Acrobatics as its nuke. Historically, I've been a very big critic of Jumpluff. I did not enjoy running the Pokemon. I felt it was too Feast or Famine. It was too alignment dependent. And I feel like, unfortunately, even though it's a significantly improved Pokemon, I still felt that pain point of Jumpluff feeling too alignment dependent. Where if Jumpluff is on a Steel type, you kind of just end up losing no matter what you do. And it got aligned onto a lot of Steel types. The team did end up going positive overall, but I ended up switching over to Kanto Ninetales, and the Ninetales ended up feeling a lot better. So I think Jumpluff, it's definitely improved. I don't think it's a Pokemon I'm going to play a lot, as it's just not really my playstyle. But man, when it comes to Energy Ball users, I think the Kanto Ninetales is the cream of the crop. Ninetales was incredible. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.